Want to flush and refill any cooling circuit? You need Toolbox W04. Why does the cooling circuit need to be flushed in the first place? Flushing the cooling circuit is a manufacturer requirement and must be done whenever components in the cooling system are replaced. These include water pumps, charge air coolers and heat exchangers. New parts installed in the cooling system have no surface protection. The surface protection comes from additives in the coolant. If you leave old coolant in the vehicle, the additives will be gone as the coolant has been in the vehicle for too long. That means the surfaces of the new components won't be protected and will be damaged by the traces of corrosion, calcium scale or particles in the old coolant. Fresh coolant additionally coats the new aluminum components with a protective film that inhibits corrosion. So you need to do more than simply top up the coolant after fitting the new parts. Instead, the whole cooling system must be cleaned by flushing it. Flushing is specified by OEMs as part of the maintenance procedure for the cooling system. Manufacturers such as VW, Mercedes and BMW stipulate it for certain engines. In the past, only authorized workshops were able to carry out flushing in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications. Now, though, independent workshops can use our compact solution, the Toolbox W04. Our compact flushing kit fits into 2 handy cases. There's no need to assemble anything in the workshop. Let's take a look at what's inside. The first thing we find are lots of hoses. Don't worry though, instructions are also included. The connections have been designed so that they can't be mixed up. They are also numbered to make connecting everything even simpler. Here we have our adapter for the container for fresh coolant and fresh distilled water. And we also have our adapter for the used coolant container. You probably already have suitable containers in the workshop. They are not included with the kit. Here we have the Venturi nozzle with hose, 2 connecting hoses with hose clips, and a cleaning adapter. This case also contains the valve block with manometer and our inspection glass for comparing the fluid. Now let's take a look at case number 2. Underneath the instructions you'll find the star of the show, the pump for flushing the cooling system. Here you can clearly see that the connections really are different from each other. It's impossible to mix them up. Also to be found in this case are 4 hose pliers for pinching off the cooling circuit, as well as the connecting lead for the 12-volt battery. Here I've taken the hoses from case number 1 again to show you that it's not possible to get them mixed up. Every hose only fits in a certain way, and as you can see here, the numbers match up too. You'll find the adapters for the expansion tank in our Toolbox W01. We haven't added these adapters to Toolbox W04 as a lot of workshops already use this toolbox. This means they don't have to purchase them twice. The toolbox is designed for universal use and is suitable for flushing older vehicles too. In another of our videos you can see how to carry out the actual flushing procedure on a Golf 7. Okay? See you next time in the workshop.